In this lesson, we're going to display contact information. Mobile devices are all about being connected. In past lessons, we've shown how to email someone, send SMS messages, and make phone calls. But we haven't shown how to find the contact to make those communications too. So that's what we're going to do in this lesson. In our form, we've got two buttons. The first one will just get all of the contacts on the device, and the second button will just count up how many Johns there are in the contacts. The first thing we need to do in the manifest is check the Read Contacts permission, and then we go to the activity. We have our usual two button handlers. And then we're going to use a URI for the contact's content. And we're going to create a managed query. And a managed query allows us to query the contact database. And we're going to create a cursor from that managed query that allows us to read the contacts one by one. The managed query can have parameters for the selection list and for where clauses and order bys. In this case, because we're going to get all of the contacts, all of that is just null, and we're just passing in the URI for the contacts. So we get ourselves a cursor, check its count, and move to the next contact. We get the contact ID by going into the cursor and getting the column index for the base column ID. And we set the first line in our text view to that ID. Then we want to know the contact name. We again go to the cursor and we get the string. In this case, we get the string from the column index that contains the display name. So we've got a couple of things nested in here. We have a constant for display name, and we use the cursor to get the column index for that display name column. Then we get a string using that column index. And we set that to our name. Next, we're going to look for phone numbers. In this case, we're going to get an int, and again we're going to get a column index. In this case, there's a column for has the phone number. If it's 1, there is a phone number available for that contact. And if there is a phone number, then we want to create another managed cursor, because there can be multiple phone numbers, of different kinds, a mobile phone, a home phone, a work phone, etc. So in this case, we're looking in the phone content URI, and now our query, we have a where clause where the contact ID is equal to the contact ID that we already read previously. So you can see that a managed query can do a where clause. We take that phone cursor and we move to next. And in order to get the number, we get the column index for the phone number and get its string. We also want to know what type of number that is. So we get the column index cleverly named data2, which contains the phone data kind. And we get an int. We cast it to a phone data kind, and then we can do a toString on it later on. So finally our text ends up to be the phone number with the type and the number. Next, we want to do an email, and it's similar to the phone number in that we're going to use another managed query, this time an email content URI, the same where clause with the contact ID equal to the ID that we already found. In this case, the email address is in a column called data1, and we add that to our text. And we close the cursors up. And that's our display. If there are no contacts, we just throw up a little toast message. The second button is a heck of a lot easier. All we're going to be doing is looking for the number of contacts that have the first name John. So we're going to get a content filter URI on our contacts. Previously we used the content URI that got all of the contacts. In this case we're using a content filter URI. We append the path with the name John, and that essentially puts in a where clause saying look for John. We run a managed query and we just return the cursor count. If we wanted to display the Johns, we could go through in the same way that we did with the cursor up here to display all the specific information for the various Johns in the contact list. So we'll run that. And we'll get our contacts. There are only two on this device, old Jane and John Doe. And if I count how many Johns, we see that I found one John. So that's how we can retrieve the contacts. You might think that the code is a little bit complicated in some ways, but it also demonstrates the power that you have in being able to use a full amount of query language to it. You can use where clauses, you can use select lists, and you can use sorting so that you can create a really good customized list of contacts that your user might want to see. In our next lesson, we're going to see how to add a contact.